I'm really excited to have Michele Blair on the show. She's gone through a lot, bearing a son early, very early, and then taking his daughter to raise. Mm-hmm. I just want to give you the chance. First of all, thank you so much for coming on. Just what we've talked about. It's just, I think as a parent, this is something that you need to listen to. The people that are watching this, they need to listen to it. They need to understand this isn't somebody's opinion. This is your story. And so kind of tell us your story, from Massachusetts. You started in Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. Just start there and just talk about how you ended up with Sage, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Sage is the apple of my eye, and after my son passed, I fought the Florida. She was in foster care for 6 months, almost a year, and she was in 6 different foster homes. And when I finally got her home to Massachusetts, me and my husband wanted to relocate to a small town so she didn't have to be raised in the city. So we moved, and we ended up in Virginia, and we've been here for almost 10 years. And Sage went to a small private Christian school since kindergarten. But when she got up to middle school, she wanted to try a public school because she wanted to meet more friends, because the school she went to, there's not a lot of kids.
Right.
So she went, and then everything went okay, but when she was 12, she started going through depression, which I expected because of the trauma as a baby.
So, not to interrupt you, but just talk about what that trauma looked like.
Yeah, she was very depressed. She had a lot of anxiety. She started to isolate. I noticed that she was not eating, so I knew she was having a problem with her self-image. And she started self-harming, and that's when I took her to a counselor. Hmm. So she was with a counselor.
So the time frame for this is when you got custody of her in Florida and took her to Massachusetts and then ultimately to Virginia. How old was she when you got her?
Oh, my goodness. She was the cutest little thing you ever did see. She didn't weigh much because she was failure to thrive when she was a baby.
Okay.
But it was the best 10 years of me and my husband's life.
So how old was she when you got her?
Just shy of 2 years old.
So you got her when she's 2 years old.
Yep.
Your son passed away in Florida, correct?
Yes.
And then you go through all the process. Just talk about that process. I don't think people understand. They think you just show up and go, "Hey, I want custody of this child." How does that work?
Oh, you know what? If you can't handle paperwork, forget it. It's not going to happen. I was so persistent. There was not one piece of paperwork. I have a file like this. I was so like I would kill him with kindness. I called every single day. How is Sage? How's it going? What do I do next? How do I handle this? I had one attorney, and she bombed out on me. I had to release her and get another attorney. I mean, every time I called social services, they knew my voice. They're like, "This is Sage's
so it's not as simple as just show up.
No.
I'm this child's grandmother.
No.
I need to take her with me."
No, and I knew that I was going to fight. I knew she was going to have issues, and I would have taken her with all the pain and suffering she had been through.
Okay.
Because she was abused in foster care.
So she goes through the foster care system in Florida.
Yeah.
And that's when you talk about trauma, that's the trauma that she experienced.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, you go through all the process in Florida to get her back, to get custody of her, and you make a decision. You born and raised in Massachusetts?
Yes.
And you're like, hey, this is probably not what's best for her. So you make a decision to come to a small community in Virginia.
Yeah.
And she starts in school. Kind of go through what that's like as a parent to see your child. And I think all parents go through that of like, what is the best thing to do? And you know that there's a history of trauma. How do you navigate that as a parent?
Well, it was kind of interesting because we drove here to bring her to the zoo because I have no family here.
Okay.
And the lady there was saying, yeah, if you lived, in Lynchburg and you go to this school associated with Liberty, and out of high school, she can go to Liberty for free. So I was like, let's move here because she can go to Liberty for free.
Okay.
Because I'm like, we're old. I don't want to leave her with a big student loan.
Right.
So she was great. we just had a blast. It was everything was going great. She's gone to church her whole life. Things were good. I didn't see any trouble on the horizon until she hit 12, and I could see the depression. She didn't start self-harming till the end of 8th grade into right the summer in between, and COVID started is when she started getting like serious about it, because there was nothing to do. All the kids were starting to.
Everybody was at home, and they're doing remote learning and everything else.
Yeah, so her mental health really took a
And you were saying she transitioned from a smaller school into a bigger school.
Yeah, she went to 8th grade, the Appomattox Middle School, and she did okay, but they noticed she was having issues.
But that was, so what grade was she in when COVID hit?
It was in the end of 8th grade, because that's when it shut down.
So you have a kid that's gone through all this trauma as a kid. COVID hits. Obviously, there's a lot of bad things that happen. You know, there were some really negative effects on children.
Yeah.
And so when she goes back to school, where does she go back to school after? Goes back to in-person learning.
Appomattox High School for 9th grade.
Okay, so she starts back in school. And is that kind of when you, like 12, 13, she starts having issues, like some of the trauma?
Well, she was kind of acting out with dyeing her hair and then going goth, dressing all black and listening to, the goth music. And she started just being depressed with an eating disorder. And as she got into 9th grade, she decided she was emo.
Okay.
So I did buy her, like, her size boys flannel shirts and baggy jeans, and she was just a cool little emo chick.
All right, so for the people that don't have kids, what is emo?
Emo is just another type of music, but it means emotional. Like, they're very emotional and they get into emotion and they like to get deep with it.
Okay.
And it kind of overwhelms them with too many dark, deep feelings.
So it's kind of a progression.
Yeah.
From what you could see.
Yeah.
And where did the progression ultimately lead her?
Well, I think at school, everybody was talking about, being, a bi or trans or lesbian, and everybody had, their different tastes. And for some reason, she decided she was going to identify as a boy.
Okay.
And her third day in Appomattox High School, the counselor came over to her and said, "Do you identify as a boy?" And she said, "Yeah." And she said, "What do you want me to call you?" And she said, "Draco." She said, "Oh, okay, so you can use the boys' bathrooms then. We would prefer you use them." So she used the boys' bathrooms, and that's when the bullying started.
So you have a counselor who is there for the well-being of a child, encouraging your child, who is a biological female, to use a male's bathroom just because of a statement she made.
And told her the girls are uncomfortable with you going in the girls' room.
Did you ever find any evidence that the girls she hung out with girls?
Yeah.
And so, there was nothing that you've seen that would have indicated that she was struggling. Struggling in a relationship with other females where all of them had problems.
No, after school they would go to the library, outside the library, the gazebo, and just hang out there talking.
So you at home, let's try to divide it up. Talk about what you now know happened at school, and then talk about what you saw at home. Because I feel like you, based on what we've talked about, you have her life at school where she's doing stuff that you don't know she's doing. I don't think as a parent you'd say, can I call time out real quick and say, I don't want my child who is a girl in a boy's bathroom. As a parent, I don't want that.
Right. I would have said that. I wish I had known. I wish they'd.
But you didn't know that.
I didn't know. No.
So talk about. Let's break it up. You as a parent, what did you see at home during that period of time?
I saw she was isolating. I knew she was depressed. She stopped, talking and telling me things, and I would just every night I'd go and sit on her bedroom floor. And I would talk, and I would do like role playing with her, and what would you do if this kid said that, or, things like that. And she would answer me, and she was okay.
But did she talk about anything about being bullied or anything else?
No. No, I wish she had.
So you didn't. So all you knew is you have a child. They're in a school. They're getting back from COVID. It's just a transitional period.
Yeah.
You don't realize you don't have all the information, even though you're the parent.
Right.
So talk about what was happening at the school during that time.
Well, apparently the boys were making fun of her. I mean, they would follow her down the hall. She did tell me at one point, these boys keep following me. And I said, well, why? She said, because they keep teasing me. I said, yeah, boys will do that. But apparently it was getting severe to the point where one time she went into the boys' bathroom and 6 boys followed her. And they jacked her up against the wall and they threatened to rape her. And I don't know exactly what else. Parts of her memory are not really, they're a little fuzzy. But when she got out, she told one of her friends, and the girl went home and told her mother, and the mother called the principal and said, listen, Draco, because at that point she was going by Draco Blair is getting bullied by boys in the bathroom. And nobody told me.
So you have a
I learned about all this after she went missing.
I'm just trying to understand, because I've worked in this, you work with school systems and things like that. One of the quickest way to get kicked out of school is be involved in a violent encounter. When you have a violent encounter, everybody gets notified. If you threaten somebody, everybody gets notified. How did you not get notified that your child was involved in a violent incident?
To this day, I don't know.
You just know that.
Well, I do know that they did. I mean, I didn't learn this till after the fact, but they did they called Sage in to the counselor's office where they had a sheriff and the 2 counselors. And they said to her, and Sage said, I didn't tell anybody. She said, I know somebody told, but I didn't say anything. They said, yeah, well, we talked to the 6 boys and they all said that's not true. And do you know if one of these boys has a rich father, that they're going to sue you for slander? Now, she's 14. When this happened, that's the night she ran away.
But you didn't know that.
No, I did not know that.
So you have.
I saw that in the notes after she was missing.
When you say you saw it in the notes.
When we got the notes from the counseling, we got some of the notes from the school.
All right. So kind of a progression, just so it's clear in my head, is she at some point identifies as a male. Mm-hmm. The counselor says, hey, use the bathroom. Mm-hmm. There's some negative encounters because of that, boys bullying her and stuff. And at this point, you still don't know that.
No.
And then there's that violent incident. The school system and everybody's having a meeting about it. And next thing you know, what happens? She runs away, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, they call her in and they talk to her without letting me know that a cop's talking to her.
Right.
And then the bullying got so bad on the bus that one of the boys said he's going to shove her head out the window and do horrible X-rated things to her. And that's when somebody, I don't know how it happened, but when they asked Sage about it, she said, yeah, pull the video and you'll see that I'm not making it up. Well, they pulled the bus video. I don't know if it's video and audio. I don't know, but they saw that it was true. And they called me to come pick her up. They said, oh, no, all the kids got, there's something going on in the bus and nobody, Sage didn't do anything wrong. We don't know what's going on. We just want, her to be picked up and some other kids to be picked up.
So you had no idea of any of the stuff that had happened. You just know that during that time, do you remember any of the friends that she had around her or anything else that like you were like, this is a different friend group or anything like that?
Well, no, she was hanging out with the kids that were like emo and goth.
Okay.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of them, maybe 4. Maybe 4 girls, they were just hanging out.
Was there anyone else, or is she the one that took it the step further of saying, like, I'm identifying as a male?
Yeah.
She was the only one that did that.
Yeah.
But the school, it sounds like, encouraged, the counselor did.
Well, that was the problem, is when they thought she was a boy, they encouraged it and they glorified it. Because one counselor, the other counselor took her in the office and said, there's nothing wrong with that, and it's okay that you're a boy, and I agree that, you are a boy, and we recognize that, but don't tell your parents. Do not tell your parents because they're Christians, they go to church, and they won't accept you. So that's when it got started. And I didn't know.
You just know she disconnected from you after that.
Yeah.
So all the bullying and stuff that happened at school, obviously the trigger to that is, I'm guessing, probably because it's a female going into a male's bathroom.
Yeah.
And nobody's really preparing the other students for that.
I wouldn't expect it. A little tiny country school. I mean, it was big compared to the Christian school, but still, it was not on my radar. And then the worst thing that happened was, as Sage was getting more and more being told not to tell anyone, and they were glorifying her new identity, she would have to live a double life, come home and let me call her Sage, but go to school and be called a boy's name. And if you're, and to me, why in the world would you not just give me a heads up in a phone call and say, listen, your daughter's identifying as a boy. Are you okay with us calling her Draco? I would have said, well, thank you so much. I'm so glad you told me. I had absolutely no idea. And I would have gone and I would have picked her up and I would have brought her home and I would not have let her go back to school, because at that point I knew she's going through a crisis in her head.
Okay. So one of the things that we talked about beforehand is, it's not like you made that decision just as a parent. You've actually gone through some specialized training about trauma, where you identified it. And just talk about that real quick.
Yeah, I've been a volunteer CASA, which is a court-appointed special advocate, of just a volunteer position, since 2015, where I take on, a case with foster kids. And I followed the case through to the end. And I had to take a lot of classes to learn a whole lot of stuff. And because I have a love for children, it really helped me identify with Sage as I saw the different stages she was going through puberty. I could see her changing and losing the joy that she had as a little girl.
But I think the thing that I struggle with the most thus far is, you're still the parent. You're still the one that's responsible for them. I always think about, in order for a child to get earrings, they have to have if you're a certain age, you still have to get your parents' permission if you're a child.
Yeah.
If you're not legal age, 18 years old, you can't.
That's right.
But what you're saying is, what your experience was with Sage is, they just made that decision arbitrarily, never contacted the person that's raising the child, that is the parent of this child, and say, hey, she's struggling with this. I think when I listen to that, I think about, if you had a child that had a mental health crisis, any of those different things, the school would engage you and say, hey, let's come up with a community response, not say. So why do you think the school, based on your experience, what you've learned up until this point, why did the school just make the decision to exclude you as part of that?
Well, yeah, looking back and doing all my research and seeing all these children that are, saying they're born in the wrong body and going through, it's a social contagion in my mind, and had, I lost my train of thought.
That's all right. So no, that's fine. So you're talking about because that's one of the things you mentioned before, is kids go through all these different phases. I mean, for lack of a better way, it is a phase. Like, they have different color hair. They cut their hair short. They cut their hair long. They do all these different things. This is just a different phase. And I don't think you're sitting here saying, like, I think everybody that identifies as trans or anything else is a bad person. You're just saying, as a parent, I should have had that information. I should have been engaged with that conversation.
And that's why it makes me sad, because they just assumed that I wasn't going to accept her as trans. And how did they know? They never even gave me that chance.
In fact, they did the opposite. They said, don't talk to her. Don't talk to your mom.
Which tells your child what when she's going through puberty? And
that is not a safe space. Yeah. That's what it tells them. It tells them, like, don't go there, come here.
And these teachers and these professionals are being told not to tell us. I mean, it is part of their curriculum not to tell us. They won't. They'll get fired if they tell us. And they think they're doing the right thing. On their behalf, they think they're doing the right thing.
But who, based on your experience, everything that you've experienced, because I think we talked about that before. I think it's really easy for me to go, I don't agree with this, but my disagreement is based on what somebody else has told me. This is your, like, firsthand experience of, you're telling my kid to identify, like my kid is telling you, I'm having a dilemma in my identity. And you're telling them, don't have a conversation with your parent about what your conflict is.
Yeah.
And that, I don't even understand where to put that.
I don't understand it either. And you know what? Here's the thing. When I decided, when she did get found, because another counselor gave her a couple of Pride websites to go on, where she ended up meeting somebody who took her, and she became a victim of sex trafficking, which she is a survivor. But at that point, it was too out of control. And so what's happening is not just to Sage and not just to me, parents. It is really, truly happening to thousands of these kids all over the world. I mean, everywhere. And we are in a big hub, and and you know what? As a CASA, our goal is to get the kids home. You know, if they're in an unsafe home, call CPS. But by you telling them not to tell your parent that you identify as, a different gender, is making them live a double life, and they're too young to be put that burden on their brains. It's just you just don't do that to a child. You always include the family. Well,
I think as a CASA volunteer, I think that is one of the things that's burned into your brain, almost to the point of like, it is infuriating to me to see cases, particularly with abuse and things like that. And it is the court's goal to get them back in that family unit that they came from.
Yes.
So why in the world, if that is what the goal is, why is this one special class, it doesn't apply?
You know what? Your guess is probably better than mine at this point. And I lived through it, and I still don't understand it. I really don't.
Because it sounds like, I know there's like lots of disagreements about trans and everything else, but like for me, when I look at it and I think about it from this standpoint is, if everything else is, the rules are like this, why is this a special like designation? Why do you have a special designation? I don't understand it. Is there some kind of study that's been done or something that says, hey, our kids are gravitating towards this and we need to support this gravitation?
No, as a matter of fact, if anybody did their research, it is harmful to the child. They're doing irreversible harm to them by giving these drugs behind our backs. Like for Sage, they were going to remove her breasts behind my back, and you don't need a parental signature to do that. They have safe houses that they're putting children
When you
in.
say they, are we talking about state government, federal government, or who does that?
The teachers call CPS, and CPS takes the child out of the home and bring him to a safe house, and they trans them medically.
So do you know? And I'm just asking this. Do you know of places in this area that they have? I know they have women's shelters for domestic violence victims. Mm-hmm. So you're saying, based on what you know, you lived it, that there are places in Central Virginia that a child who identifies as trans can be removed from their parent and go to a safe house to have. House. Yeah. That is correct.
That is correct.
Mm.
Yeah.
And you know that because of why?
Because I've done my research, and I have done talked to a lot of different people, and I know of there's a lot of states that have these safe houses, and it's real, and it's starting to come out, but people are still blaming the parents for not accepting the children. They still think they're doing the right thing.
So is this like a national thing where...
Oh, this is all over the world. Everywhere. Well, except for Africa.
But I guess, like, from my standpoint, the only way I can make sense of it is to isolate it. And isolate it from a standpoint is, this is the only type of event that you can have, or identification that you can have, that totally removes parental rights.
Yes.
Would that be accurate?
That's 100% accurate.
And that
100%.
So I think we talked about a couple of things that you experienced with Sage. Is, first of all, you had a counselor had a conversation about a mental health crisis. I mean, is it safe to say that there was a progression for her that you realize as a trained CASA volunteer, she is having a mental health episode and a continuation, which ultimately ended with her identifying as a male.
That's accurate? Yes, because the summer, a month before school started, I knew that she needed more professional help than I could support her with. So she did go to a week-long adolescent program.
Okay.
And when she got out, we started her on medication.
Okay.
And she started school a month later, and then it just went downhill from there.
And I think that's where, for me, again, you hear stories and you hear how militant people are on both sides of this issue. One of the things and that's one of the main reasons I want to have you on is like, you're not talking about it and like, oh, I heard this. Like, you actually experienced it. So let's just walk through what you experienced. You had a child that you got at a young age. She had trauma as a child. There's a progression of trauma. She's having an identification issue. And it's not just an identification issue as like, it's in the way she dressed, going through each one of those progressions, hair, all these different
Eating
things.
Disorder.
Self-harming and everything else. So like, she would have been in a category as like, hey, this is somebody that's in a mental health crisis. Let's not do anything drastic. Is that safe to say? Is it safe to say that normally with a child that has a mental health episode, you're not going to make any drastic changes? You're just going to have a conversation. I mean, am I accurate in saying that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like
100%.
we're not going to go, okay, we see you progressing in this mental health, like self-harming. We're not going to sit there and go, okay, well, we're going to transition you to something different. Like, you're self-harming, you have a mental health thing. And I think they're going to reach out to you as a parent even more and say, let's work together to figure out what this is.
That's what I would have thought.
But
that's what I would have thought.
But so when she was having all these other, like all these self-harming and everything else, did you ever have any contact with social services or anyone else that were like, hey, we just want to give you a quick update about this?
No, but here's the thing. I knew she started self-harming.
Because you saw it yourself.
Yeah, I saw it myself, and I knew. And that's why she was going for counseling. And she was saying...
But I think for me, I think a lot of people want to come back and go, well, it's not, like I'm trying to say this in a way that I know where you're coming from, but I think what people want to say is they're like, well, it seems like you have a child that's in the midst of trauma and going through all these different identification issues, and obviously the parent's not doing a good job, so we need to, we need to support the child. But I think it takes away the really important step, which is that child is still the responsibility of the parent.
Yeah. And
somebody independent of the parent that doesn't know all the details, from the time that child was born, and even more from the time that Sage was 2 years of age, what she had been through. So why would you not be part of the process to help her?
And you know what? Had I been part of the process, because trust me, I know Sage better than she knows herself.
Right.
And had I been part of the process, I would have been able to fix it. I would have fixed it, because you know what? I would have loved her through it. I wouldn't have taken a textbook and texted her through it. Or I wouldn't have glorified her and told her, yeah, you're definitely a boy. Let me give you some websites. Go on them and find your people. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have told a child, go use the boys' bathroom. Sorry, you're a 90-pound little girl. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that, not only as a teacher, just as a human being, I would not have done that.
I mean, I think it's almost like this is totally different, but like for me, I look at it as like, if I went out to a restaurant and I saw somebody else's child misbehaving or doing something, I'm not going to go and intervene with that child.
Kid.
No, and I'm not going, because I don't have all the information.
Right.
And I think that's the key here is you had people making decisions for her that didn't have all the information.
Right. And to make matters worse, they didn't even open the file and read her file. They identified her and glorified her.
She got in this category and that fast tracked her.
Never even opened her school file to see what her records were. And as a CASA, the first thing I do is go to the foster child's school and talk and read the file and talk to the counselor. That's the first thing I do before I even go further with the case.
Because you don't want to introduce something that would...
Well, I want to know what happened.
Right. But you don't want to, like, your solution or how to navigate that child, it shouldn't be based on, well, I think this. It is like actual information.
Yes.
And so you as the parent of this child saw a progression, and that progression ultimately ended with her being bullied because of a decision the school and her made. which was for her to go use the men's bathroom. So you go through that progression. You have that incident on the school bus. Were there any other things that happened that put her on the course where she was actually, and if you need to, just go straight to, like, they gave her websites of like, hey, they said these are some of your people that you can identify with. You can
find friends here.
Okay. And so they introduced her to an unsafe environment, and she ultimately was a victim of trafficking. Yeah. Talk about that. Yep.
She went on one of the websites and thought she was and this was the night that the school had brought in a sheriff to the school and told her that they talked to these 6 boys and they never ever threatened her with rape or bullied her. And so the sheriff told her, well, if one of the fathers was rich, they would take you to court. And that's when Sage, and you got to remember, she's going through this, she's 14, now she's traumatized, and now she's thinking it's all her fault. And she tried to say, but it's not my fault. I didn't tell anybody that happened. But somebody did. Another student did and told the mom, who called the school. So now she comes home, and she's upset. And at this point, I'm in her room, and I know she's upset. And I'm like, Sage, we need to talk. Something's bothering you. And I find on her floor a school pass that says Draco. And I'm like, oh, here's a school pass. Who's Draco? She said, that's me. And I said, what do you mean that's you? She said, I'm a boy now, and I didn't want to tell you. I said, well, you know what? I can see you're upset. And she started crying, and I held her. And I said, Sage, you know what? Don't worry about it. I love you. It's okay. And you know what? Just get some rest, and we'll talk about it in the morning. You're not in trouble.
So how old was she at this point?
14.
14. And so she's in the 9th grade, 14 years of age.
Only 2.5 weeks into school. Okay. Like, nobody knew her. How do you try to judge my child? You don't know her that well. You only had 2 sessions with her. Actually, they called her in to counseling sessions 8 times, but we don't know what was said during them. I would guess they were telling her she was a boy. That's my guess. That's my educated guess.
But you have somebody at school having a really, really life-changing conversation with your child without me there. Having any conversation with you.
Nope.
Okay. Which to me is, like we discussed, is abnormal.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's not just me. It's all these kids.
Well, we'll go to. I would like to talk more about the other kids, but so you find this past where she identifies as Draco. She goes to bed upset. But what you didn't know is she was already having contact with people online, correct?
Yeah, and she ran away that night.
But it wasn't. So when she ran away, how were you able to figure out where she was and kind of talk about what happened to her?
I didn't know where she was. The FBI, the search and rescue dogs came out. The FBI told me, we're probably looking for her body at this point, where I was on my knees. And 9 days later, the FBI got a tip from somebody, and they found her in the home of a second-time child sex offender in Maryland. So on day 9, they called me at 10 at night and said, we found your daughter. She's safe. We have her at the hospital. Come get her. And they give me an address.
And this is in Maryland.
Maryland.
But just so we're clear on this, the way she met these people when she ran away.
She was meeting a 16-year-old kid to go skateboarding with.
But that introduction was from who?
From somebody online that a counselor had given her.
So they basically introduced her to the person that ultimately raped her.
Yeah, and who would give somebody else's child any website, without my permission? Even if it was just ABCs. Why would you do that without not sending home a note?
No, I agree.
I wouldn't ever give anybody's child that. So
the FBI calls you. Talk about what that 9 days was like, because you said the FBI said
I thought she was dead. I was a mess. It was just.
Did you find any information that or did you have any information that said other than like that one thing that you found in the past that said Draco on it, was there anything that was like, hey, this is probably why it happened? You had
Well, at that point, I did not know, and there was nobody to point the finger at. I was just like, I don't know what happened, and I was just too traumatized at that point because I thought
you thought she was
she
gone.
was gone.
So you had mentioned earlier, when did you have the conversations of like actually tracking her down and tracking her movements? Was that after she was found?
Well, when she was found, me and Roger, I packed the car up with pillows and blankets and stuffed animals, and we went to get her, and they had her in a girl's female jail. So I knock on the door at 8 a.m, and I'm like, my daughter's here. We're here to pick up Sage Blair. And she says, oh, you can't see him. You have to talk to the judge at 4 o'clock. Her. They called her her. At 4 o'clock. So we just sat in the car waiting for the hearing. And then we get into the courtroom in Baltimore, Maryland. And up on the Zoom screen is little tiny Sage in the corner of a jail cell on this chair. And I start crying. And I say, Sage, I love you. And that was it. The judge shut down the hearing and said, we have to, they shut down the screen for Sage and said, this is Draco. And that's why, now we're going to have Maryland investigate you for child abuse. And we need Virginia to investigate you and your husband for child abuse. Because you're not recognizing her as a boy.
That's
what happened.
Oh, my word.
That's what happened. I got the transcripts to prove it.
So you go from, okay, I just see this past that identifies her as a male. And she's a
runaway child.
And she's a runaway child.
Which the law says you return the child to their state. They could have at least returned her here and put her somewhere, but no. And they didn't tell her that we were there.
So that's the first time you'd ever seen her since 9 days before when she disappeared.
And the public defender told her that your parents don't love you. They don't want you to come home because you identify as a boy. So now she's thinking, now you got to remember, here's a 14-year-old child, has been very innocent, goes through a sex trafficking, a bunch of grown men trafficking her. And then she gets put into a hospital. Cops pick her up, raid the house, pick her up, put cuffs on her, bring her to the hospital. She goes through a very extremely painful rape exam, which is a horrible thing.
So she reported that she was a victim of a sexual assault.
No, they just knew. They just knew because they knew he was a sex offender. So
they just went and...
Yeah. And
but did you know that when you went to the initial hearing?
No.
So your child gets raped and they don't even tell you?
No. They should have called me and said, come to the hospital. We found your child. She's in the hospital going through a rape exam. I would have drove there.
But instead they had her in a jail cell.
Yeah. And now she thinks it's all her fault. Because if you know what goes through, a girl's, girls are very emotional. Now she's just feeling guilty and it's all her fault. And then
I feel like she went through the fact that she ran away and, all that. And then I feel like I would say she definitely felt like, I feel like there's a lot of experiences that victims of sexual assault go through and blame.
Yeah.
And like her support system wasn't even there because they didn't allow you to get there.
And then they told her support system, meaning her parents, don't want her anymore. And then I say to the judge, we have to come back on Monday. And I say, why is she in jail? She's done nothing wrong. And the judge asked public defender, is that true? And she says, no, there's no criminal charges. Well, we'll find a facility for her. So we come back she does a week in jail in solitary confinement. Now she's left alone for a week at 14, broken.
In a women's prison in Maryland.
In solitary confinement in Baltimore, yeah. And so then the judge says, yeah, so you know what happens? They put her into a boys' home. They put her in a boys' home. They put her in a boys' home for high-risk teenage boys.
I mean, that's...
insane. It's insane.
I don't even know, like, you have a kid that has experienced all that, and you think the solution is to put her in a home, put a female with boys. High risk.
Yeah.
So the kind of people that...
And nobody would listen to me.
So
I kept saying it's trauma. It's trauma. It has nothing to do with her gender. This is a girl that's traumatized. And the judge said, if you say the word trauma one more time, I'm throwing you out of my courtroom.
So you have the experience of like, hey, thank goodness my child is safe.
Well, that's
then it goes to now you're part of what they believe to be part of the problem, and you can't have access to your own child.
Right.
How long did it take you to get your child back?
Well, she was there for 3 months.
She was in a boys' home for 3 months.
3 months, and they finally agreed to let her come back to Virginia, but I couldn't give her the ride. We had to have an Appomattox sheriff and a female social worker bring her, but they wouldn't let her come home. They were going to put her into a facility. Well, I found the facility because I'm a CASA and I'm used to finding beds and open spaces for get these kids where they need to go for support, and it's called Youth for Tomorrow. And it's a wonderful Christian program with all outdoors. And she would have been part of, they have a specific part of their program is for girls, young teenage girls that have been sexually exploited. Well, the judge said no because they won't call her Draco. She had to go to a facility where they recognized her as a boy and affirmed her as a boy and called Draco. So I couldn't find one.
Quick question. Did they ever say anything about providing her any type of counseling for her sexual assault for the 3 months that she was in a male facility?
And that's what I said. I said, you know what, sir? I said, Your Honor, it's okay, but please get her some trauma help. I asked, I begged, please get her some trauma help. She's just gone through a horrible thing, and she's not in the right place. She needs help.
So we're talking about at that point they knew she had been sexually assaulted.
Yes.
They knew that she was a runaway from Virginia, and their solution is to put her inside of a boys' home.
Oh, and the boys' home, by the way, does have sessions, group sessions, but she wasn't allowed to join in because. And I said, and they said, no, we can't get her trauma help because she's not a Maryland resident, and that's why she couldn't join the boys' support group, which that's fine with me, but they would not get her help because she wasn't American. And I said, well, then please let her come home because I have her support system here. I said, I have a psychiatrist lined up. I have a therapist lined up. I have everything she needs here.
And they still wouldn't let you.
No. And I said, I'm a CASA, sir.
So
and you know what he said? Well, you were CASA on this case? I said, no, Your Honor, I'm not. He said, well, that ends that.
So what I hear, again, the way things are traditionally handled in law enforcement changed because of that one designation that at some point she identified a girl that identified as a boy, which totally changed everyone's reaction to a sexual assault victim, a runaway, and that
it didn't matter. That was just all on the back burner.
None of that mattered.
No.
And even to the point of when you found a place for her,
yes,
that was one of the considerations.
They wouldn't call her Draco. And that is the only reason. It is in the transcripts. It is absolutely unbelievable.
So I always think about one of the things people talk about Lynchburg is it's part of the Bible Belt. You know, and like you've got all these conservative thought processes and everything. Here. Yeah, have all these conservative processes. But yet this is so prevalent, I would guess, that even in this area, we decide that we tell a girl without notifying her parents, hey, it's fine for you to use the boys' bathroom if you identify as a male.
Yeah.
All these different, your child is involved in a violent incident in school, and you're not ever notified about the violent incident.
Never.
Again, everything's changing just because of that single designation of I'm possibly trans.
Yeah, and they all focused on that. That was their focus.
So none of the other stuff mattered. When you got your child back, just go through that real quick. When you got your child back, how many men had sexually assaulted your 14-year-old child?
More than she could count.
So she wasn't like those 9 days she was gone. What would be your?
It got worse.
But the 9 days, let's just deal with the 9 days. The 9 days she was gone. how many times was she sexually assaulted?
I don't know.
And how many different
There's part
people?
of her memory that won't allow her.
But let's talk about the first night that she could remember.
Okay,
She
there's the first guy that picked her up who
came all the way from where?
I don't know, but he was in Virginia. I don't know where he came from, but he brought her to D.C.
He took her to D.C.
Yeah.
and she got gang raped. When
He left her with two guys that were traffickers.
And they
kept her there a few days and then brought her to Maryland and gave her to the other guy.
But so when was she first sexually assaulted?
When the Virginia guy picked her up, she lost her innocence in his backseat
Of his car.
Yeah,
and she thought
violently.
She thought she was getting picked up by a 16-year-old, correct?
Yeah.
And so how old was that guy?
I don't know, but he was an older guy.
But he wasn't a child.
No.
He was an adult.
Oh, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah. So you have that guy that sexually assaults your daughter.
Yeah, we never found him.
Never found him. He takes her to somewhere else. And when we think about, I think people think about trafficking and they think about, well, they just bring in younger children from other countries and everything else. Your 14-year-old daughter was trafficked from Lynchburg, Virginia area to D.C. and ultimately to Maryland. Mm-hmm. So,
and they told her, we're going to transport you to family, and that's their code for the next guy in line that brings her to another state until they finally get the kids into Mexico, where then they're gone.
How far do you think, based on what the FBI and everybody told you, was your child from disappearing forever?
Right there. They said it was like looking for, a needle in a haystack. They didn't think she was alive.
They thought either she was she was dead or she's already in that. Yep. She's already in that pipeline.
Yeah.
And going.
Yeah.
Because I think
that's what they told me. They prepared me for it.
They're like, she's in the pipe, and that's based on their evaluation of her computers and everything else. Yeah. That they were like, oh, she's in. So, Bible Belt of Virginia, your child has all these different things that happen to her, and ultimately she ends up in a human trafficking network. At multiple occasions, she was violently raped. What happens then? After all that happened.
After she ends up in a boys' home, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, what happens then is when the court judge decides that she can finally come back to Virginia, and she had to go to a locked facility, and
did they ever say why she had to go to a locked facility? Because you said
because it was the only place that would call her Draco. We couldn't find any other place except this one place in Virginia that would call her Draco.
So again, all these things that traditionally were handled something different, we're going to focus on the fact that she's identifying as a male. So all of her rehabilitation, treatment, and everything else is based on that.
Right out the window. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's more important.
But what they did to her then is, in her head, a locked facility. Now, you got to remember, these guys kept her locked up. So now, in her little head, she's like, oh no, they're going to bring me to a locked facility. So what does she do? She runs away.
She ran away again?
Yep. Out of the high school, she gets on somebody's phone, and again, she thinks she's meeting a kid. And
so she makes it back to Virginia and runs away again. Is that correct?
No. She never got out of Maryland.
She was in Maryland and ran away again.
She ran away from Maryland. But she didn't come home because she thought that we didn't want her. That's what she was told.
But you know that because that's what she's told you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She told me. She said when I finally got her, she said to me on the airplane, because they found her in Texas. She said, Nana, she goes, I tried so hard not to think of you, but I really missed you, but I knew that you didn't want me anymore. And I looked at her, I said, Sage, what do you mean I didn't want you anymore? She goes, well, my attorney told me that you didn't want me because I wanted to be a boy. I said, no, Sage, I would never say that, never. I said, I was there. I went to the jail. I was right. She said, you did? I said, yes, I went to get you. I was there. Me and Papa were there. We were there to get you. She said, they didn't tell me that.
So how did she end up in Texas?
She thinks she's meeting this guy, this boy in Texas, and they get her a bus ticket. Now, the Maryland cops caught wind that she was on her way to Texas. I don't know all those details. But when she gets to Texas, they're waiting for her at that bus, but because she's tiny and little and had a black hoodie on her, she knew that the guy wasn't answering her calls anymore because somebody gave her a phone, weren't answering her calls, so she knew something was up. So she snuck off the bus because she thought they were going to bring her back to jail. And,
to a locked facility.
And now she's left on the streets of Fort Worth, Texas at night. Because the cops went to where they knew who she was conversing with on the phone and took him away because he was the next trafficker. But they caught him.
Okay.
But now she's lost on the streets, and somebody picks her up, and the whole thing starts over again. She becomes his victim for 3 months, almost 3 months.
How old was that guy?
He was 38.
So he sees a 14-year-old child walking around
and asks her if she wants some chicken nuggets at McDonald's, and she's hungry, and she says yes, and that was it. She got in his car.
And how did she end up getting out of that situation?
That was a horrible, 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 horrible situation. I won't go into detail, but long story short, I am a mess. Now I'm ready to lose my mind. I am getting into all her social media. I am on her Instagram, her everything, all the things. And I'm talking to people going, this is her mother. I love her. Please help me find her. And I get all these hate people. Oh, he ran away because you wouldn't accept him. And I'm just taking it. I'm like, listen, I just need to find him.
So this is the friend group that was introduced to her.
Oh, tons of, I'm on with people all over the world, I'm sure.
But the friend group, the reason she has contact with those people, if we go back, is that the counselor's saying, here's some of your people.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, she's got a list of contacts, and I'm just sending out these, SOS, SOS, SOS. And one guy gets back to me, and he says, listen, I've got this picture that I know came from Draco. And he sends me this picture, and it's this big blackbird on the roof of a car. So I called the Texas, before all that, I called the Texas, what are they? Not the sheriffs, the...
Texas Rangers?
No, not the Rangers.
State police or the troopers?
No, what's the other ones that help? I know, I can't think of it either. And I said, she's got a phone. Can you tap her phone? And he said, no, it's not our case. You have to have the Maryland detective sign off that we can have the case. So I called the Maryland detective, and he says, oh, I can't sign off on it because she's still a missing child here. I said, but she belongs in Virginia. But they were looking for a foster home for her in Maryland is what they were doing. And that's why they wouldn't let her leave. Anyway, he wouldn't sign off on this document. So he couldn't tap her phone. So I went into, casa mode, and I did get that picture, and I sent it to them, the Texas authorities, and one of the guys says, I know that convenience store. There's a convenience store sign behind the bird, and he says, I know that convenience store. He goes to the convenience store. He gets the video. He sees the guy's car, his license plate from Missouri, finds out where he's staying, and goes there and crashes in and
the police officer did.
Yeah. And bring her to the hospital, and called me immediately. And I get on a plane out of Lynchburg because now I'm like, here, pull out the credit card, Raj, and I fly right there. And as I'm coming in to the airport, he calls me. I just knew that they were going to find her. It was definitely a divine moment, and it was definitely miraculous because I knew they were going to find her, but they hadn't called me yet. They called me as I was flying into the airport, and I said, I'm here. And he's like, what do you mean you're here? I said, I just knew. I knew that this tip was going to find her, so I was flying here. And they were great. They didn't even ask me for an ID. They had two women cops pick me up, brought me to the hospital. I waited there. When Sage walked in, she didn't even recognize me. She was so broken. And I start crying. And she's like, "Are you my Nana?" I said, "Yes, I'm your Nana, Sage." She said, "Oh." No emotion, very flat. And I bring her to a hotel room, and I'm very guarded and quiet. I don't want to overwhelm her. I had to make myself stop crying. And we spent the night, and it was on the way home on the airplane that she started talking to me.
So from the time she ran away from your home in Virginia to the time she was recovered by you in Texas, how long was she gone?
She was gone 6 months.
6 months. And I think that's what strikes me in the whole situation is that all of that was preventable.
Yes, with a phone call.
If they would have just taken the time to have a conversation with you and say, as a parent, your child is going through this.
They don't have to say that. They just say, your child wants to be called Draco and identifies as a boy. That's all they had to say, because it was everywhere.
But
all the kids were doing it.
But is there did they ever give you a reason why you weren't, as a parent, treated like a parent?
I never talked to them again. They wouldn't talk to me.
I know for me, when I have to pick up my middle schooler, I have to show them a daggum ID.
Well, you don't hear.
But you have to, but they're allowed as an entity to say, well, we think the parent doesn't know best in this situation.
And you know what's funny? It's a policy. And it wasn't signed till a month after she went missing. So they really didn't have to follow that policy. Because it is a policy.
But all right, so who puts that policy out?
The school administration.
But is it something that's the Virginia Department of Education puts it out to dictate to all the local schools? So every local school in Virginia, every public school in Virginia has a policy that would have been followed like what you have.
Yeah, yeah.
So what my suggestion as parents is to get out there and find out what your school's policy is as far as being notified on any type of an environment, like any type of an environmental or personality change or anything else.
But the school boards aren't passing it. They're still saying, because we as parents, I've gone to so many school board meetings, and I stand up and I give them my story. I've gone all over Virginia talking.
Okay.
But nobody will vote it. Well, nobody's voting for it. The board is like against us, all the school boards.
So there is no large-scale effort in Virginia to say, we have a governor. Governor Youngkin is governor because he said parents should have a choice as to what happens with their kids.
Yeah.
But even after all that, what you're saying is if your child identifies differently, you will not be notified.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just not a theory. That is 100% what happened to you. And as you travel around the Commonwealth, it's not unique to Appomattox County. Mm-mm. It is.
We tried to actually push Sage's Law. I had 3 different delegates bring it every year, and we were still voted down. Sage's Law was going to be very simple. In a nutshell, Sage's Law, if the bill had passed, it meant when a child is in school and identifies as as a different gender, the school has to notify the parent and ask the parent. For instance, Sage wants to be called Draco. Will you allow this? Yes or no? And if I say no, they have to honor that. If I say yes, then it's okay. And they would not pass it. That's all it was.
I mean, I think when you listen to like what people are talking about, people will go into all these different things about like, well, we're not protecting our children. We're not. But let's just take a look at Sage's experience. She's introduced to a group of people who ultimately traffic her, and she ends up in Texas as a trafficking victim and as a victim of a sexual assault. You get back a broken child just because she wanted to be a boy.
Yeah.
And you were never notified.
There it is right there. Now she's dealing with permanent complex PTSD for the rest of her life. As a matter of fact, when I got her home and she went into her room, she started crying, and this kid never cries. Fell down on the floor saying, "I'm not here. I'm not here. I don't know where I am." She didn't even like her own room. She just couldn't believe it. And anytime she heard a loud noise, I'd go see if she's all right. She's in the back of her closet. She's scared out of her mind.
Without going into graphic detail, just talk about a single day that she experienced as a child in Texas. What was that like for her?
She was drugged. She was locked in a bathroom.
Okay.
And she was brought out to be used with different men and put back in there.
And people feel like that's okay just because she identified as a male.
Well, they didn't know all that. That was the last part of her.
But that decision that they made to take her out of your care and your direction ended with her locked in a bathroom in Texas, being sexually assaulted by numerous men to the point where when she comes home at the end of that, she's lying in shambles.
Yeah. Oh, and there's another little part that you don't know about. In Maryland, they would have given her back, but I think like the 5th hearing in Maryland, up on a big Zoom screen comes who? The 2 counselors from Appomattox. And they are there to testify against me. Don't give her back. Because they are not affirming her as a boy. And then the guy counselor says, I've never seen him as happy as he is now. I almost dropped dead. I'm like, she's got a bruised face. She's all beat up. You've never seen her so happy? Are you kidding? So this guy behind my back, starts Zooming counseling lessons with her while she's in the boys' facility. And I write a letter saying, do not let him talk to my 14-year-old daughter ever. And you know what they did? They kept letting it happen because they
Let me
didn't
get
respect.
so I understand this correctly. As a parent, you were not given access to your child.
Nope.
You say,
oh, I was sending her cards and mail.
no. But I'm
never
saying
gave it
when
to
you
her.
had a hearing with a judge, you had a conversation and you were like, I really miss you. They cut it off. However, the person that put her in the situation, you can say whatever you want. That counselor provided her a gateway to be trafficked.
Yep.
And it's still okay for him
To counsel her.
to counsel her.
You can't make this stuff up. I have all the emails to say, I keep begging these people, please don't, because he kept telling her.
Who have you found locally? I know you had mentioned some legislators that have tried to put this forward, but who else locally or nationally has taken your case and said, hey, let's just forget about the fact of like, she identifies as this. You have a 14-year-old child that was in a violent sexual exploitation type of environment for 6 months. Is that not enough to get somebody's attention to say, hey, maybe we need to rethink of how we're doing this?
No, I calling attorneys was a full-time job, 40 hours a week. We were mortgaging the house. Not one attorney would take my case because I could not get her out of the locked facility. Nobody would take my case because it was too controversial an issue. Nobody.
So for you as a parent, what would you tell other parents as it relates to your child? And if you see them transition into different behaviors that are concerning, what can you do to protect your child? Because the school's not going to protect them.
I would tell them, you know what? You know that child better than anybody, and you love that child more than any of these people do or ever will be able to. And you know what? It is up to you as the parent to guide your child through this stage of life. It is our decision because we do it out of love. We will love our child through any and everything that happens to them. And you know what, parents, it's okay to speak up about it because I know there's thousands of you out there, and I know that you're not alone because I stand here with you. This has happened to thousands, and I know that you feel broken and you don't know how to speak up because you know what? You are just feeling so exhausted. It is so mentally draining to be told that we are wrong over and over and over and over again, and to be taken our parental rights away from us. Like, you're going to take the kid out of state and never tell us where he is. I talked to this one poor mother. I could go on and on. There's that many stories. Horrible things.
So
are
talk
happening.
about after your story got out and Sage's Law started going through the General Assembly in Virginia. Talk about like the one that's the one phone call that you got from another parent where you're like, it's one too many.
It, what one of the worst ones was really a dad that wouldn't affirm the daughter, so they took custody of the child and started giving her the medical transition, and
So we're talking.
They put him in jail. They put him in jail because he wouldn't.
Because
he kept saying no, absolutely not. So they put him in jail and took the daughter and transitioned her.
How old was the child?
She was 14 too. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you hear all the rhetoric, you have recently you have someone who's in a relationship with somebody who identifies as trans, and is going through transitions, and you have all this nasty rhetoric back and forth on both sides. I haven't heard anything from you that says I hate people that are in that at all. You're just saying as a parent, I know what's best for my child.
Right.
And unless I'm putting my child in physical harm, like you can't, the other option is, it looks like in this situation, the government was like, hey, let us intervene. A hell of a job. My child is trafficked to another state and endures 6 months of sexual assaults because of your decision to tell her who she was.
Yeah. And then the guy retired a month after she went missing again.
The counselor?
No, the judge in Maryland. Yeah. It's just sad. It's very sad.
I mean, I almost think I've had other people that have come on and they've said their story, and I think they go, you're not going to believe this. And I hope anybody that listens to your story understands that you're just as much at risk as you were in that situation as a parent. If you're a parent,
Yeah.
there's a really good chance that you could be in the same environment.
Yeah.
The judicial system and all these other entities are more concerned about identity politics than they are about the actual child.
Yeah.
Because you can't tell me at any point during that time where she was missing that they couldn't have done what's best for her, because obviously they didn't, because she ends up in another state with a trafficker from Missouri. Mm-hmm. Anyway,
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
I'm just very, very, very fortunate that I had the experience with juvenile court system as a CASA, because anybody that doesn't, I don't think could mentally have gone through 17 hearings like that alone with no lawyer. And I asked for a public defender, and they said no. I'm like, why can't I get a public defender? I said I can't find an attorney to take the case, Your Honor. Oh well.
Well, all I will say is, I don't know if my fury will help you or not. Like, it is infuriating as a parent and as somebody in law enforcement to think that anyone in government would take. There is no set of circumstances that I think validate what happened to your child. Mm-mm. No set of circumstances. I don't care what, other than you being physically abusive towards your child. I don't know of any other reason why a government entity should interfere with your rights as a parent. If the child is in harm's way, and I'm not saying harm's way of like you might hurt their feelings, you might do this. Like if Sage decided she wanted to be a boy or a man years later, I don't think you'd have an issue with that at all.
No, not at all, because you know what? You're an adult making an adult decision.
And I think that's think that's the key. The key is, I think decisions made like this are adult decisions.
Right.
And they need to be made by adults.
Right.
And I'm not saying adults that aren't the parent of that child. I'm saying an adult needs to make that decision.
Absolutely, 100%. Because a child's brain isn't even done forming until you're 28.
And I think
if you're giving a 14-year-old girl hormones.
I think that's the scary part about it, is what you said early on, which is they thought they were doing what's best for her.
They did. But they made them all take classes to tell them that this is what's happening. And they all fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. It's because we love these kids that we have to keep them from their parents. But you didn't even tell me. You didn't.
I know, but
I
I guess when I think about it, and I think about foster parenting and everything else, I think I've seen kids that have been physically abused, been around parents that have substance abuse problems and everything else. They're in a good foster home. They're on a good path. And because of the way the system is set up, they will be sent back to that parent who has all those issues. And I'm not saying like an issue of like, hey, I don't agree with that decision. I'm saying a parent that's being physically abusive, there's abusing narcotics and everything else. They'll put them back with that parent.
Yes.
Once all they need is a couple good clean drug screens, and they'll put them back with them.
Right.
So I don't get it. So,
Yeah, I don't get it either. Yeah, and you never will get it. This is just like this.
God help us.
This one subject that is just.
I just hope it's a phase, because like from my standpoint as a parent, I don't know that I would have survived it like you did, because I think I probably would have burned the place down.
No,
I really
you know
would.
What? My poor husband, he was just out in the garden all the time. He couldn't even talk to me about it. I was like, Roger.
Well,
he didn't know what to do. It was Thanksgiving. She was still missing, and we drove. We knew she was in Texas. We drove to Texas for Thanksgiving, just driving around Texas thinking we're going to find her.
Just happened to see her.
Yeah, just maybe I'll see her. Yeah, well, we had nothing else.
And I think that's the thing that I think about too, is I think everybody thinks about these nightmare environments. Like you think about a nightmare as a parent for your child to be abducted, to be the victim of a sexual assault, to be forgotten. Mm-hmm. All those things happen to you because somebody in government thought they knew how to be a parent better than you.
Yeah, I will tell you, I was on my knees one night and I just completely surrendered. I said, Lord, please take her. I would rather you take her home to heaven than leave her here with what's happening to her.
To her to suffer anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I appreciate your time. If there's anything that we can do to help what you're doing, I just think more people. I'm
just grateful that you invited me just to be able to share it, because I will share it with everyone.
Well, I think more parents need to stand up. I don't think they just need to get engaged, and they need to understand. And I'm just as guilty. This is not me standing on a soapbox saying I'm a wonderful parent, because I've got enough kids that'll tell you that I'm not a great parent some days.
Well, none of us are.
But I guarantee I'm not going to put my child, let me put it this way. I would never put somebody else's child in an environment, I don't care what they identify as, that is going to that has the risk of what Sage had to experience.
I know.
And I think that's the key.
That is the key.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
you very much for telling the story, and I appreciate it.